Conviction, I think, maybe more than anything, that we're in a moment
Yeah.
in history. That certainly we're in a moment, as many people have already spoke to, between good and evil, where the battle is at our front door, if you will, and it goes far beyond Democrat and Republican. And Nick and I were just talking before we got on here about some of the conspiracy theories, some of the this doesn't make sense, what's happening with this case isn't matching up, the details that aren't making sense, that both sides of the aisle, free thinkers, if you will, are laying out, that it's maybe even a reality, a good versus evil, in the context of what Charlie so often stood for, which is the people
Yeah.
rising up to not overthrow the government, but to reset the way that government approaches putting America first, right? And in his last days, there were a lot of things he was saying, but certain people outside of the US and the way that they approached America. And we're not going to get into any of that today, but just to lay sort of the foundation and the groundwork. There's so many people you can go and listen that are far more knowledgeable about the inside out that we're listening to, and trying to take all sides into consideration, try to listen to free thinkers all across the land, if you will, to be able to come up with our own thoughts and ideas about what's happening here, and not so that we can pick a side. Certainly, we have our moral convictions, and we believe first and foremost in the gospel of Jesus Christ. We believe that he is a real human person that changed our lives, and that we serve him. And so that looks a certain way, like so much of what Charlie stood for. I don't get to decide the rules. I follow the rule
Right.
that was laid out before me, and it's not a restrictive rule that I used to think was the case when I was a teenager and into college, but it's a rule and a way of life that leads to freedom, that leads to life, that leads to flourishing. And I've experienced that first and foremost in my own life, which has allowed me personally to say no to things that are bad for me. That might make me feel good in the moment, believing that way of life, that fullness of life, is possible for me. So that's our conviction and grounding, far more than a political ideology or a way of we think the land should be ruled. But we also think that we're in this moment where men are waking up, and we want to be a part of that, right, Nick? We want to be a
Yeah.
part of the solution, part of the healing and transformative work that God is about in our day. And doesn't mean that it's about to get, I think that's a week later. There's certainly a sense of, like, it's not, the waking up doesn't mean we overthrow the government like the Jews hoped for in Jesus' time. Like, now it's
Right.
finally here. We're
Yeah.
finally going to live in the reality of life. It's still a matter of, will you pick up your cross and follow me? This is going to be really hard.
Yeah.
But that we're in a unique moment in history where it's happening. It's happening. We don't know what is happening in its entirety, which is part of the overwhelm, but something is happening.